In this video, we're going to finish up our style configuration system. We're going to begin by putting in the implementation for each of our methods. That'll get all of our fields loaded up, and then we'll take a quick look at applying the first of these inside of our game.
Okay.
So to get started, we're going to address load config. There's actually two different things we need to do in here. First is we need to make sure we set up the association with that file name. We need to get our actual XML document pointed at the incoming file name. So what we'll do here is, since we're only going to use the style XML document just for the duration of loading, we're going to define it as a local variable inside of load config.
Makes sense.
So I'll make an XML document. We'll call it XML config. And we'll say that it will be a new XML document. And then we'll turn around and immediately say that XML config will be told to load up an XML file, and that will be given in the form of file name. So that will get our config file loaded up and ready to be accessed. Now we can turn around and assign all of our fields that are in style colors and style positions. And once again, since this is a lot of repetitive code, I'll create the first line as a template, and we'll go back and apply the naming as a second pass. So let's begin with style colors. We'll begin with style colors dot background, and we'll say that that will be equal to, and then in order to get this value out of the config file, we'll use our read style color helper method. So we'll say use read style color, and then we'll feed in our XML config, and then we need to give the path to the specific node. So just a quick refresher, if we look at our style.xml file, we'll begin with style as the root node, followed by colors, followed by background, and background will be the node we need to look at. So the path then would be /style, /colors, /background. And we'll end off the quotes, and then we can add a parenthesis to end off the read style color method call, and that takes care of loading in our background.
Now, is that what you're going to consider your temp version?
Yes, well, since we already had the name inside of the method, I just went ahead and grabbed it, but yeah, this is the one that we'll use for duplicating. So let's grab this line now, and we'll paste it maybe 12 times. And I don't remember if those last two were additional, but we'll address those when we get to them. Now, for the sake of time, let me see how fast I can go back and forth from the individual fields, since really here are all the names that we need. So moving on from background, the next one up is text normal. So we'll drop that in, paste it in here as well. Maybe I can just use IntelliSense. That might be a little bit faster than doing all of the scrolling.
Well, the next one is text selected. And then text... Oh, well, let's get that in. Then text score. Oh, you mispasted.
Oh, one too high.
Then text BPM. Then track. Track title. Beat mark. Beat mark measure. Start mark. Hit line. And then you have edit grid and edit cursor.
Oh, we got close this time.
Yeah.
We've got edit grid, and then we just need one more, and that will take care of edit cursor. And there we go. Edit cursor's in place. Now we can look at all of the style positions. So, once again, we have, this time we'll look at the style positions And why? Let's see. Style. And let me look at one thing real quick here, because style positions doesn't want to show up. And that is because when we named the struct, I had missed the letter T. So we'll patch up the naming on style positions. Now style positions lights up as a valid type. And we can begin from the top with beats per minute.
Okay.
And that will be equal to read style position, where we will feed in our XML config and then specify a path. So this will be, from the root we have style. The section now is going to be positions. And then the BPM node will simply be named BPM.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if any of these aren't lining up, just go back to the XML file and make sure that the paths match the node structure.
Sure. Now you're going to need 6 more of those.
Alright, let's see. And 6.
And the next one's going to be main menu.
We'll make sure we get that copied over to the node path.
Mm-hmm. And then song select.
Which is different than score select, which is what I selected. Song select links up to song select.
Then score players. Next, score select. Next, pause menu. Next, save prompt.
And that should take care of all of the fields for style positions.
So we've officially got that information out of the XML file at this point.
Or we will once we code
We will
these
once,
in.
yeah, we got to get our method bodies all written in.
But again, that just leverages the skeleton nature, so we can focus on things topic by topic. Now we can turn our attention to read style, color, and position, and make sure that we perform the necessary calls to get those loaded in.
And then we will have the information out of the XML file.
Yes, at long last. All right, for read style color, all we're going to do is leverage functionality that exists inside of the config class. We're going to be using getNodeValue to do the actual value reading, and we're going to use parseColor to get that string value converted over to a color. So the method calls will be config.parseColor. Now we need a string to feed into parseColor, and we'll get that from config.getNodeValue. Now getNodeValue, since getNodeValue was designed so that for every call we pass in a specific XML document, what that means is that we can use the XML document from style, meaning this one that we had defined up here, instead of the XML document that config currently has loaded for all of the game settings.
Right, because the method itself doesn't care.
So, and in the context of read style color, that's of course being passed into us as a parameter, so we'll just pass along XML document. And then the individual node is given as node path. Then we can end off the parenthesis for the getNodeValue call, end off the parseColor call, terminate, and that's it. Again, we just had a series of nested methods, and the whole reason to put them there is now we don't have those method calls cluttering the individual lines where we're loading up colors and positions.
Sure.
Now we can do the same thing for read style position. We will return a value given from config.parseVector2, and then we'll feed a value to parseVector2, which is config.getNodeValue, once again, and we'll pass in XML document and node path. So same as before. So with that really takes care of all of the methods inside of style that are relevant to config loading. Now we can jump over to the game class and test some of this out. So over here in our game class, let's first jump into the constructor, which we're currently looking at right here, and we'll go right below where we're loading in our configuration options. As soon as we do that, we'll turn around and address the style class, and we'll tell it to load config. Then we need to pass in the name of a configuration file, and to do that we'll use our already existing style path, and we'll simply append to that the name of our actual style.xml file. So we'll once again use path.combine, and we'll feed in global state dot style path, and we'll combine that with style.xml. Finish off both parentheses to the combine and to the load config call, and that should take care of getting the value loaded in. Now, to put the first value into use, we'll jump down all the way to the bottom in our draw method, and we'll use the color defined as the background color inside of our call to graphics device.clear. So what we'll do is we'll look at, instead of looking at color.cornflowerblue, we'll look at stylecolors.background. And this is where it gets very handy to have all these organized, since now we just have one container to call, and that contains fields that we can use.
Gotcha.
So it keeps all of our code very concise when we go to turn around and use colors. Now if we build, we see that we have no errors, no syntax problems. Before we run the game straight out, I do want to jump into the style class now and set a breakpoint right up here as we start loading individual fields, just so we can get an idea of all of the information coming in and make sure that it's working.
Sure. Just step through and make sure it's all getting pulled out of the file.
So with our breakpoint set, we'll run the game, and then immediately we drop and hit this first breakpoint, so that's signifying that our call inside of the game's constructor is working. Now looking at background, we can see that right now background has an RGB value of 128, 0, 128, and an alpha of 255, which matches our default purple color.
Right.
Now if we hit F10 to step over this line and look at the current value, now it is red, green, blue of 0. So we have a color of black.
It's black.
So that's working.
And that was the only unique color that we set over there. Everything else was yellow.
Right, so everything else should now change from 128.0 to 255.255. So looking at text normal, if we jump over here, now we have 255, text selected, 255, text score.
So it is indeed grabbing the information for you.
So text BPM, track, 255, title, 128 to 255, beat mark, 128 to 255, excuse me, beat mark measure, 128 to 255, start mark, hit line, edit grid, which I jumped over one too many, but we can see that it is 255 and everything else was default, so that loaded, 128, 255, so very good. Now we can look at the style positions, which are currently 0 and 0. If we step over a line, now we have 1 and 1, 0 becomes 1, song select, score players, score select, pause menu, and save prompt. So everything seems to have loaded in just fine. We'll go ahead and hit F5 to jump into the game, and we can see that the entire game is now black.
Right,
because
it's no longer blue.
We are now drawing our semi-transparent log, which is also a transparent variant of black on top of black. So we have an entire screen of nothing but darkness.
Very nice.
But this is showing that all of these values are loading in, and we took the time to check each one individually just to prevent problems in the future if anything naming-wise got messed up.
Right.
But everything seems to be working just fine, so that really...
So that wraps up our style configuration system, which also wraps up this video.